the only way for me to truly have an impact on oceans it was going to be to get my hands dirty, literally and figuratively. And that's when United by Blue started to come into play, which was the mindset that, hey, I want to create a brand with a purpose and a mission to physically do something about this issue, not hire a nonprofit to do it for us, but do it ourselves.
From ALDA, this is the Protect Your Wild podcast, a show about founders, athletes, and influencers, and how their passion for the environment led to their actions and career paths today. I'm Colin Campbell, and this week I'm having a chat with Brian Linton, the founder and CEO of United by Blue, an apparel brand known for removing 1 pound of trash for every single item you purchase. So they're doing a great job keeping our waterways clean and using innovative materials in their products like bison fur that was otherwise being wasted. If you want to learn more about that, be sure you check out our brand review blog post of them at aldalifestyle.com. Otherwise, this was a great conversation, guys, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it. And I've had my eye on your brand for a while and obviously love the mission, love the focus on picking up trash and all the attention to detail put into the materials and everything. So
thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing, I guess, real quick from the founder's words himself, could you give me kind of the quick pitch of what United by Blue is and what differentiates you guys from all of these other brands out there you can choose from?
For sure. We're United by Blue is a sustainable outdoor lifestyle brand of apparel and accessories with a concrete focus on ocean and waterway conservation. For every product that we sell, we remove 1 pound of trash from oceans and waterways through company organized cleanups. We've been doing that since 2010, removed over 1.7 million pounds of trash across nearly 300 cleanup sites. Really, the innovation in the business model is such that it's just as much about the community and the unification around oceans and waterways as it is about also addressing the issues of single-use plastics and building awareness for it when it comes to that plastic getting there in the first place. So we're very much focused on this holistic solution to this global issue of ocean and waterway pollution.
Right, and like using the business basically as like the platform or the vehicle to kind of do that.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely it's all baked together. It's not a third party that's going out and removing the plastics, or we're not paying for any type of credit. It's the cleanup side of the business and the for-profit side of the business are baked into the same organization.
Yeah, I love that, how you guys kind of take ownership, I guess, over the problem and are hands-on in that solution. There are definitely a lot of companies out there that'll, let me toss 10% to XYZ nonprofit, let them take care of the dirty work, and we'll do our thing. But it's really impressive that you've been able to kind of do both. So I want to dive into a little bit about you basically and the person behind this whole brand here. So what was your childhood like? How do you interact with nature? Where did that passion for the environment come from?
So I grew up in Southeast Asia, predominantly in Singapore. And Singapore is a small island nation in Southeast Asia, tropical, very warm, has a very large tropical fish industry. So I was growing up, I had a ton of fish tanks, 30 fish tanks in my bedroom.
Oh, wow.
I was like a fish geek, essentially. Loved the aquatic world. I wasn't the type that was out, surfing or anything like that. That's not why I love the oceans. I love it. I love the oceans for what is within the oceans and what is within the waters. Yeah. And, the thing that I learned growing up pretty fast was that the quality of the water in my fish tanks was incredibly important. And it was critical that I kept an eye on that because I had a lot of high value fish. I had some fish that were worth, towards the end of my quote unquote fish career, worth upwards of like $1,000. I sold one fish when I left high school for $1,000.
So you started as like a fish tycoon, basically.
I was a teenage fish tycoon.
Nice.
And and so I had to pay special attention to the quality of the water. And
Yeah.
if the water was dirty and the fish died, that would be catastrophic. And so really, when I started to think about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to build for my career, really protecting oceans and waterways became that core focus, because frankly, it's shocking for anybody that has seen it to see how poorly we treat some of our world's oceans and waterways
Right.
in terms of pollution.
Yeah, the way we view it, I think, is, oh, it's so much volume, right? Oh, there's so much. The ocean's so big; it's 70% of the Earth. So, what's one oil spill? What's one, insert the blank that could go in and be catastrophic to that area? They go, it gets diluted throughout or something.
For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a bad mindset to have, I think. I was really into kind of animals and pets myself. You'll probably hear my little parrot in the background making some noises here and there.
That's funny.
Yeah, I work remote, so he's kind of like my little buddy. But
nice.
Yeah, so Singapore is pretty Western, is that right? Did that
Western?
Yeah, like it's in Southeast Asia, but culturally, in a sense.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, it's entirely, well, I would say it's very international. It's
Okay.
Actually less Western, more European, if you're gonna
Gotcha.
Splice and dice it. But really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a melting pot. It's multicultural. It's got 4 or 5 national languages. It's incredibly diverse.
Okay. So what ultimately kind of brought you back to America then?
I mean, ultimately, my family's from here, and
Mm-hmm.
I eventually finished up my college education in Philadelphia, and my wife is from the area, so that's what brought me here and then kept me here.
Makes sense. Yeah, and you guys with United by Blue are still based out of Philadelphia today, correct?
We're a Philadelphia-based outdoor brand, probably the only one.
Yeah. Being in Colorado now, that's one of the things I found pretty interesting, is a northeastern brand with such a focus on like outdoor gear that I had imagined is being consumed mostly by like the mountain states. Is that
Sure.
kind of like your bigger demographic, like Oregon, Colorado, Utah kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely California, the West Coast,
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain region, PNW. Those are definitely the core markets for where we sell our products. It shouldn't be surprising that we certainly find a lot more trash in the East Coast compared to the West. But the crazy thing about our mission is that we've never had a cleanup where we don't pick up trash. There's unfortunately anywhere there's people, even in really progressive clean areas, there's going to be trash, and that's because as long as companies are making plastics that are being used once and then discarded, there will continuously be the issue of trash getting into our waters.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw you guys are actually doing a cleanup here in Boulder coming in, what is that, October 19th? So I'll definitely be there for that. But
yeah, that's going to be a good one. I think we're going to have a big, it's going to be with one of our retailers, and then we're going to have a big like warehouse sale with it as well, which is, it's really important for us to like meld the conservation side and the business side, so people can understand that, it is possible for a business to have both profits and good happen at the same time. And by doing it that way, we're not dependent upon, any external source other than our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point on much more progressive place like Boulder, for example, there is definitely less trash, I've noticed. I'm from Gainesville, Florida originally myself, which is full of creeks. We did a lot of, I started an environmental organization in college, and we did a bunch of cleanups and stuff like that with students, because it's the best way to, I think, make an immediate impact and have people see the problem like right there, but also when you come at the end of the day with and are weighing your trash bags, it usually blows people away the amount of poundage, I guess, if you will, that gets pulled out of the creeks and stuff. Definitely, does. I'm really curious to kind of see what happens here in Boulder.
I I agree. It's going to a cleanup in your backyard is oftentimes one of the things that a lot of people in the communities that we've worked in, it's the most surprising thing for people that live like a mile or 2 miles or even 10 miles away. They're like, holy crap, I didn't realize there was so much stuff in my backyard.
Mm-hmm. Was that as much of a problem in Singapore? I hear it's like very clean is another kind of thing that gets around about it.
Yeah, Singapore has an interesting sort of disparity between the land and the waters, and this is probably also what drove a lot of my inspiration for United by Blue. Mm-hmm. Singapore is one of the most clean, if not the cleanest, countries in the world in terms of the land, in terms of the culture is just spitting is illegal.
Right.
Chewing gum is illegal, so like there's a great sense of value of cleanliness. But the waters that surround Singapore are by no means clean. I learned to scuba dive off the coast of Singapore, and Singapore is not where you go for the beach or for scuba diving because it's a huge port and there's a huge amount of shipping activity and also the third world countries around it, Indonesia, Philippines, right. Malaysia. And so the actual waters around Singapore are notoriously dirty and you scuba dive and you can't see your hand essentially. Oh, and this was maybe 15, 20 years ago now, but it definitely is. It's sort of an example of the world as a whole. If we only care about the terrestrial areas of the planet where we live because we're terrestrial beings, the waters also need equal care. And there's a lot of things that I can reference, everything from the fact that we're doing a lot better as a human species protecting the land with national parks and protected areas and different things like that, but we're doing a horrendous job historically on applying that same principle to the oceans.
Right, because it's kind of like, whose job is this, right? There's a lot of probably like hands in the air. Oh well, that's not our job really. Everybody's using the ocean, so why should we have to do something about it? Yeah,
well, and also like the fact that the oceans and waterways and water as an element unites everything, unites all life on the planet, and it unites in the sense that like that water that flew through the Delaware River out here in Philadelphia is it's our issue when it's flowing through the Delaware and passing Philadelphia, but then it gets to Cape May and it's flowing by that town, and then it gets into the Atlantic, and before you know it, it's in Europe somewhere, the Caribbean. Right. So it's a shared resource that really the world as a whole has, just like climate change, and that's why plastic pollution is becoming such a hot topic right now, and many indications are showing that people are actually talking about it and caring about it more than even climate change because it's something tangible and physical.
Right.
But it's the same thing. It's like climate change impacts everybody no matter where you live. Even if you live on an island in the Maldives and you're going to have rising sea levels impact you. Was that your fault? Did you burn those fossil fuels to make those sea levels rise? No, but it's a global issue. It's the same thing with plastics.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a great point about that, the visual of it. Like there's kind of, it's easy to make like a sexy story, or not like sexy, but discuss whatever, a story, right, about something you can physically see, and you can, share images on Instagram about the Pacific garbage patch, or, the beaches in India or wherever. But it's not quite as appealing to throw up the graphs of climate change and be like, hey guys, so this is what's happening, and
right.
Yeah.
Or here's like here's the ozone and CO2 levels and the light refraction, and so it's like, whereas like, hey, this is plastic, this is shit in the water, we gotta stop it from happening.
Right, exactly. Yeah, people I think tap out quick of the climate change talks because it can get real nerdy real quick. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, there will be some way to change the like culture around that, but it's definitely encouraging to see all the hype around reducing plastic pollution these days. That's definitely hopefully in kind of my generation will be one of the biggest like turnarounds, is just cutting plastic out of just about everything that we can.
I think we're on the right track. I think there's, when I started 10 years ago in 2010, and I started my original brand in 2006 that was also focused on ocean and waterway conservation. And so like the cultural shift that's happened is phenomenal. Like I often have to sort of like, it's interesting to hindsight from being in the position that I've been in this industry for so long. And the funny thing is that really in the last 2 years alone, really the last year, the 12 months period, has been the most fundamental cultural shift that I've ever seen for this issue and for anything in general on the environmental side of things, right? Like from an environmental perspective, there's been a lot of activity in the last 20 years, but there's never been this fundamental shift that we've seen with plastics and the perception of it. And I look at it and I think it's going in the direction of almost like cigarettes and like tobacco,
right?
Not that those activities and that product still exist. And I expect plastics to still exist in 10, 20 years
sure.
and in some capacities being used that are going to be polluting the environment. But it's going to be a totally different cultural mentality on it when it comes to carrying around a plastic bottle, similar to what carrying around a cigarette is. It's not necessarily illegal. It's not necessarily makes you a bad person. It makes, but it's got a little bit of a faux.
Yeah.
It's a faux pas, right? It's like he's a smoker. Oh, he's a plastic bottle drinker. You know, like,
yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's that was one of those big things where my parents will ask me now and then, because they were both smokers when they were young. Like I make fun of my mom for smoking in high school. She was like, yeah, I smoked in the bathrooms and whatever. And and I couldn't even imagine, like I could count, on one hand the amount of people I know that smoke tobacco these days.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the same thing. Our kids are going to be like, yo, Dad, you actually like used a plastic water bottle?
Right, yeah, you moron. What's your problem?
Yeah.
I have this one buddy who I lived with in college that was infamous for plastic bottle use. He'd bring in, in both arms, be carrying this like, what are they, like a 20-pound thing of like a 24-pack of water bottles or something. Just about every week he'd come in with that, just slide it under his bed, and then we'd have all around our apartment plastic bottles just sitting there, like half drank in, half full. Oh man, it gave me a lot of anxiety because I couldn't figure out how to change them without being a jerk,
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so that kind of brings me to the materials that you guys use. Obviously, like bison is one of the biggest, kind of most interesting things that are incorporated into so many of your products. And that was, I think I actually did come across you first at the outdoor retailer winter show when I first went like a year and a half ago. But I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to the, like, why using bison? Like, where kind of did that come from? It seems kind of random because I never see it around anywhere else.
It was about 5 years ago. We had just started making some merino wool socks, and they did quite well. They were a product that sort of took off right away for us, and it was very intriguing to me. It was the first time I was using wool, and I started just thinking about really what the sustainability aspect of using this material was in the context of being united by blue.
Yeah.
And it's not that wool is a bad thing to use. In fact, we definitely use it and we blend it into a lot of our products because it is a great natural fiber. But I didn't feel like we were doing anything necessarily pushing the bar forward when it came to sustainability and being a leader in the material side of sustainability. So
right.
I started looking at wool alternatives, things that perform like wool, basically animal natural fibers, and that were not necessarily being used, but were readily available. Turns out bison is not readily available. It exists in the form of all these bison that are being raised for this growing demand for bison meat, which is a more popular beef alternative that also has better sustainability aspects to it than traditional beef cattle, because you have it out in Colin.
So there's that.
Yeah, it tastes better. Well, I mean, it is healthier, but it's proven to be better for the grasslands. It's a native species, right? It's not like some 1,000-year creation by man through crossbreeding. It's truly like a wild thing.
Yeah.
And it's also it's just generally less. It creates less emissions. It's not by any means a perfect food. No animal protein is in that sense. But the good news is that the growth of the bison meat the growth of the bison meat industry is displacing some of the more traditional, more harmful meat industries, and it's also creating a byproduct of this fiber, which is not being utilized to its fullest advantage. In many instances, it's completely discarded. It's burned off in the tanning process for the hides, or it's simply the hides are thrown away. So we inserted ourselves into this supply chain to shear bison, predominantly shearing the hides after the meat is processed, but also shearing in some instances live bison during their annual checks. And the amazing thing about that is that this is a beautiful natural fiber that was created by nature, and there's 600,000 bison that are raised on these ranches for the meat, and it's being totally underutilized.
Yeah.
So we believe that sustainability is not a status quo. It's not one level. It's always an advancing evolution of what sustainable should be. So by utilizing bison fiber, we're really utilizing a material that now means that we can utilize less synthetics, less other natural fibers that are being grown specifically for it. And what we found out was that bison fiber is truly a miracle fiber, in the sense that it's designed, again, by nature to keep a bison alive in negative 40 degrees in a Yellowstone winter, but also their natural habitat goes down all the way to Mexico, and to be able to survive a Texan summer. And so it's because it's temperature regulating. It's incredibly warm. It stays warm when wet. If you ever see a picture of a bison in the wintertime, snow can sit on top of a bison, and it's basically insulated by the bison fiber. And so the first product that we made was a sock. We've also invented bison shield insulation, which is a proprietary insulation that we've created from bison fiber that is in our outerwear and in blankets. So it's a really neat material. It's our way of being different and having a sustainable down alternative. So we're not utilizing duck or goose down, which is controversial in many ways, and we're also contributing to utilizing materials that would otherwise be waste.
Right, finding that gap in the supply chain is the coolest thing, and I think that'll definitely be, or we'll be seeing more and more of that over the coming years. That efficiency game, a big part of sustainability, I think, is efficiency, right? Reducing the waste of things that are already there, finding uses for things that are already there, finding a second life, right, for things that are already there.
That's exactly true. I mean, we can't. The single-use aspect of our culture, both in terms of plastic and everything else, is what we have to change.
Yeah, 100%. So when I saw you guys, of course, using the bison stuff, doing some of the research, I just said, let me Google some shit about bison real quick, and it blew me away that they can swim. They're 2,000-pound animals wearing a fur coat that can somehow swim with hooves like that. I don't know. To me, it just blew me away. I don't know. It's very weird.
They're pretty badass. I've spent some time in some fields with some bison, and I mean they're totally different than any other livestock. It's amazing. It's an amazing animal that we almost wiped out as a human.
Right.
800. There was 800 left, they say, in the late 1800s, and it's largely because of the ranching industry and the use of them for meat, which has actually brought their population back. There's pockets of wild bison still as well, which are pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, it's that weird thing with a lot of these more rare animals, I guess, where if you can attach or attribute some sort of fiscal value to it, now there's a reason to invest in their survival. It's such a uniquely human problem.
I think capitalism capitalism got us into most of our environmental issues and societal issues.
Right.
And I truly believe that capitalism is the answer to a lot of those as well.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's, you have things like, there's obviously controversy and a lot of issues with any of this, but, anything from ecotourism and the idea of the African savannas and like safariing and like, all of that. I mean, there's so much value for in a capitalistic sense for preserving those areas that now it's created an industry around it, and therefore preserve the animals.
Right. Yeah. And you get into obviously the hierarchy of needs with the local people in a lot of these places where ecotourism is so prominent. If they're not like taken care of in one sense or another economically, they're not so concerned about, conservation. Like, okay, if there's no value in this forest for ecotourism, guess what? We're going to slash it down and we're going to plant insert the crop that works in that area. So yeah, obviously fulfilling the economic needs of those areas is huge, and it's definitely good to see the popularity of that kind of thing going up.
Agreed.
So what has been your biggest challenge? Well, actually, first, I'm kind of curious to talk a little bit about your business venture that you started prior to United by Blue, because I didn't know that happened, first of all, and how did that kind of experience then influence your next project when you started United by Blue?
The first project?
Right, yeah. You said in, I think, 2006 or something you started, or 6 years prior, something like that, you started a different company?
Yeah, I started while I was in undergrad. I started a brand of like resort merchandise that I was importing from Asia and then selling to the coastal areas across the East Coast. And the premise for that was donating 5% of proceeds to ocean conservation, which, in my entrepreneurial infancy, especially back in 2006, donating money, that's the answer to everything. You donate money to somebody else, they do good in your name, and the world wins. But what I realized with that is that there's tremendous limitations with simply thinking that money solves the issues. It's not about that, and you can't just, especially as a small business at the time, you can't just donate like hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars and think that there's any tangible, concrete action that's going to happen. So I learned a lot with that brand, and this was when I was still in school. And by the time I graduated in 2008 and started to think about what I wanted to do long term, I realized that the only way for me to truly have an impact on oceans it was going to be to get my hands dirty, literally and figuratively. And that's when United by Blue started to come into play, which was the mindset that, hey, I want to create a brand with a purpose and a mission to physically do something about this issue, not hire a nonprofit to do it for us, but do it ourselves.
Yeah. And were there any challenges starting United by Blue in 2010? Because that was like on the heels of course, the recession and everything like that. And obviously, there's certain financial needs when you're starting a business. A lot of times, if you're taking out debt or what have you.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, starting my original business in 2006 and then graduated in 2008, which was the year that the market collapsed in October. And then, those years ensuing it were definitely an interesting time. The good news is that I had no reference point for what the world should be like or what the economy should be like, right? I never really...
So first steps in the real world, kind of, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah. And so looking back, I'm like, wow, like if that happened now I've tasted what like a stable economy and relatively good, healthy spending and everything that goes, maybe not a good political climate. Haven't seen that yet. But if I was thrust into a recession now, I think my perspective on it would be so different than when I was 21 or 22 and going through a recession. So 2010, when I launched United by Blue, was still in the thick of the recession, but what that allowed me to do was really learn a lot. It allowed me to get my feet grounded, and then really grow out of that recession. I think it was I wouldn't have had it any other way in terms of like starting at a time period where things were so tough that really the upside was such that you grind it out, you create those relationships with your customers, and then the long-term payoff comes over time. We're not an overnight success by any means. We're it's almost 10 years in the making, and we're still, in my opinion, still got obviously a lot of work to do, both on the business side as well as the environmental side. So it's a slog.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What were kind of some of those initial steps that you took and starting United by Blue? Like how, like what was your kind of initial product launch? Like what did that look like, and how were you able to fund it? That's obviously one of the largest kind of most difficult tasks a lot of times if people, entrepreneurs, I guess, figuring out their strategy of how they're going to get something off the ground and make it financially not too risky, right?
Sure. It was really just 4 graphic T-shirts the first year, May of 2010, and the funding for United by Blue was fortunately the previous brand that I had started. So
Gotcha.
it's all the same sort of continuation is from my perspective, but there
Right.
is like a time period where this previous brand was being run, was generating revenue, generating profits. Those profits were being then invested into United by Blue as startup capital in essence.
Gotcha.
And for the first few years, that's how United by Blue was funded.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and 4 graphic tees, and look where you've come now. You guys, compared to a lot of the other sustainability brands, like your product offering or the breadth of it, right, from your outerwear to a lot of the footwear that you guys have and stuff is pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that I wanted to get into talking a little bit about the new shoes that you did the Kickstarter on, the Eco Chukka.
Yeah.
So I guess tell me a little bit first off of like, the materials. Obviously, the goal is to kind of make the most sustainable shoe that you can. So how did you approach that, and what's like? Give me the pitch on the product, I guess.
Sure. So I mean, this Eco Chukka, the Jasper Wool Eco Chukka, really ties right back to our bison story as well, because it's insulated with the bison shield insulation. So we've been using this insulation for several years, and this company Sol, which is known for their footbeds and their insoles, came to us and basically said they're working on this project that is gonna basically they're trying to make the most sustainable footwear out there. Mm-hmm. We're like, awesome. That is exactly the mindset that we take about the categories that we go into. Let's partner on this. And so we basically worked with them to come out with this shoe that through and through, everything from the outer merino wool fabric to the insulated bison shield on the inside to the recycled wine cork footbeds.
I'm all about the wine cork. Yeah.
Yeah, the wine corks are pretty cool. And so we created this product that we truly can stand behind and say this is the most sustainable footwear on the market. And we took it to Kickstarter in April, and in the 30 days that it was up, did over $500,000 in pledges, which was a pretty good indication that it's a good product.
Yeah, got some quick traction there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been I've of course keep my kind of eye out for these products, and specifically in the footwear. There's been like an explosion in the past 2-3 years in sustainable footwear, between Allbirds blowing up obviously, and we did an interview with another company, Saula Shoes, I think, Guy in France. He's a nice dude, but I just love, I guess, the fact that these kind of lesser known brands compared to your Adidas and your Nike have taken it upon themselves to be the leaders in the innovation in this stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, it's pretty kick-ass, and I see like the attempts, I guess, that are being made by Adidas. I believe has some kind of shoe out there as well, and it doesn't seem to me, at least, to stack up to like things that you guys are putting out. It's pretty impressive. I love seeing, not that you're little guys, but compared to Nike or the the shoe brands that are kind of the incumbents, I love the headway that you're making in this industry.
I appreciate that.
So to kind of let me get a sip of water. So to kind of break these conversations up a little bit, I like to do a little segment, if you will, in between. So I got some rapid fire, kind of random, some not so random questions for you here, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So first one I got, what's one personal achievement that you're most proud of?
When we hit 1 million pounds of trash removed, that was a personal and professional achievement that was definitely monumental for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and now you're at 1.7, you said, right?
Yeah, about 1.7. We'll hit 2 probably in the next couple months.
Hell yeah, that's great. that's a lot of trash. Damn.
A lot of trash.
Would you rather sleep in a tent or in an RV?
Tent.
Tent, yeah, I'm right there with you. I look at those. I feel like RVs are kind of for the baby boomer generation, maybe.
For sure.
I'm a tent guy. Yeah. Who do you think would win in a fight, Lance Armstrong or Neil Armstrong in his prime?
It's got to probably be Lance because he was juicing at his prime. So
yeah, that's a good point. He had some performance enhancing drugs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, maybe Neil's got the brains on him, right? Maybe he could think of some sort of strategy or something to beat the physical dominance of Lance, but who knows?
That's true. If there was apparatuses and tools and like technology involved, maybe yeah. But
right. Yeah, if they got some kind of MacGyver situation, it's like, all right, you get duct tape, 3 arrows, and a stick, and you have to fight.
Right.
So, what is your personal favorite United by Blue product?
Oh, personal favorite. Oh man, I like a lot of them. I wore the Bison puffer jacket all last winter. Great sort of relatively lightweight puffer jacket that has the Bison shield insulation, sustainability through and through from the recycled polyester outer and the Solapel DWR, which is like a PVC free waterproofing. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, totally the Bison puffer jacket.
So Bison puffer. So yeah, people check that out as well. What is one environmental threat that you think is going to get a lot more attention in the next couple years? That's not already like plastered on the map. Plastic.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that's not plastic.
So that's not plastic, basically. Yeah.
I think the thing that definitely is already getting some traction, but probably isn't nearly getting the amount of traction that it should is carbon. It's companies reducing their carbon output, their carbon emissions is going to be incredibly important. We have to, as a species, put less carbon into the atmosphere. So I'd like to see what's happened with plastics, single-use plastics, also happen with carbon. It's just going to be a matter of, what is that emblem for it? With plastics, it's been, sea life eating straws and bags and things like that, and that's motivated the base. What's gonna make people care about this invisible gas in the air?
Yeah, I wonder if tying or we talked about the visuals that you have with the plastic, if tying, the carbon stuff to all the extreme weather we've been seeing, maybe that'll be
it's tough because like climate change and like weather and like, everything like that is so much more political than plastic getting into the ocean.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I find that so strange because they both kind of have business implications in a lot of ways. Except carbon, of course, tying to fossil fuels, which have, I'm sure, a much bigger pull.
Well, it's the same industry, to be honest. I mean, fossil fuels and plastics are the same industry, and carbon. So it's like it's all back to the damn oil that we're addicted to. But there's something about the physicality of trash and plastics in oceans and waterways that has just broken through the noise versus emissions and climate change and weather patterns, which, you have a really cold winter storm and a politician will like tweet, "Oh, so much for global warming." And it's like, that's not how it works. You see one clean beach and it's like, you don't say, "Oh, so much for the plastic pollution issue."
Right. Exactly. Yeah. A bunch of morons. Yeah, have you seen, there's a Facebook thing I actually saw just posted today of the term freedom fuel being used to try to rebrand fossil fuels. Have you heard of that or seen that around yet?
No, that's ridiculous.
Jesus, yeah, I've seen clean coal dropped a couple times in different political things, and now freedom
Yeah,
fuel is like the biggest joke. My
that's
immediate thought was like, yeah, I produce a lot of freedom fuel after I eat like roasted garlic or something. That's my
yeah,
freedom fuel. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah.
What else we got here? Oh, okay. So we got another fight matchup. Who do you think would win, the Avengers or the Justice League? I don't
Oh
know
man,
how much of a nerd you are, but I'm pretty deep.
Unfortunately, I'm more of a fish nerd than a hero nerd. I would have to say the Avengers, just because I know that the movie just came out and they must be in good shape if they had a movie coming out.
True.
So,
but Aquaman,
but
if you're a fish man, Aquaman's on the Justice League, though. You know, so
I didn't know that. Well,
yeah.
now I got to change my vote.
There you go. Yeah, that I went and saw that Aquaman movie. I was I think it did so well just because that actor is the pinnacle of the human specimen.
Yeah, for sure.
And last thing, I guess, what's one piece of advice that you would give to, you know, a young entrepreneur or like yourself, for example, looking back when you started your first venture in college?
I think time is all relative. I think that when you start as somebody that's young, you know, whether or not teen, 20s, even like, you know, 30s, like I am now, I think that there's always this mentality that business develops and takes shape and takes either a success or a failure within such a short period of time. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's not the reality. There's very few overnight successes. There's also very few overnight failures. It's a process, and you have to be willing when you start a business to be a part of that process for a long time. Mm-hmm. And you have to be incredibly patient. Incredibly, you know, it's easy to think that you're going to have to work hard, that you're going to have to sacrifice, but the patience part, I think, is pretty fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of drives me nuts today. Or, you know, I'm only 2 years out of college myself, and you know, being in the whole like entrepreneurial world or whatever in college, you know, around those different types of people who just want to, you know, let me see if I can go raise a bunch of money, and like, you know, the boom or bust mentality of a lot of people coming up. There's so much hype being put around this kind of like Silicon Valley, like you know, venture investing type of, I don't know, thing.
Exactly.
I think it's killing off a lot of the determination that it takes, or it's just like rewiring of the brain of what an entrepreneur should be.
For sure.
Yeah, but patience. Yeah, that makes sense. My dad's company's 20 years in the making now, and we're still, you know, fighting to break through with education in the school systems, with reading being his mission. So I've definitely seen that story kind of play out.
That's awesome.
Well, cool. So to close it out, there's a couple more broad questions here that I have for you as well to kind of get the perspectives of all these different people I talk to on certain things, and love the variety of answers that I tend to get. So don't be afraid to get out of the box here. So first thing is, how would you go about explaining sustainability as a concept to like a toddler, like a 5-year-old?
That's really interesting, because I have a 2.5-year-old, and I probably have to start explaining it to him soon. And I'm still explaining to him, like, your foot goes into the pants, you know, and you know, don't touch that. So it's hard to think that sustainability. Put your toes
in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So how would I explain it to a toddler?
Or show it. I mean, it doesn't have to be with words necessarily either.
You know, I think one of the things that I'm doing with my toddler is that, and I'm doing this because it's something that is in my history, is I got him a fish tank. Oh, and nice. So we have 7 guppies in there, and you know, because I love to raise and breed fish, we already created babies, so we've created an ecosystem in there. We have these baby fish. We have every couple weeks, we do a little bit of a water clean. We look at the filter together. So it's not necessarily, we're not talking too much about the environment yet, but this fish tank is exactly what the world is like on a microcosm.
Right.
And explaining to him that, and I already explained to him when he's feeding the fish, how much do you feed them? How much do you feed them? Just a little bit. You don't want to overfeed them. And he said, and I asked him why. He says, because they'll get sick.
Nice.
Because the water will get dirty. And so he definitely gets the fact that you have to be stewards for the world, for this fish tank, at least.
Yeah,
He's responsible for that. And so when you think of it on a broader scale, we as humans, we're stewards for the earth. We are the only hope for the earth. Unless we're not here, it's within our control, just like that fish tank is within his control. So I think that's how I would explain it to my little guy.
Yeah, that's pretty great. That's something I'm very appreciative of, is obviously being raised with that kind of respect and appreciation, I guess, for the wildlife and the environment. I similarly had started with a fish for me, then I had a pet turtle. The turtle
Nice.
outgrew my tank, so I found a guy basically that has a big pond who is the store owner, who kind of took him in once I could no longer take care of him, and has him now part of this big turtle pond community that he's built over the years in Florida. I've just always loved being around, different animals. You get to watch and observe them, understand them a little bit. So that's a great answer, and I think something hopefully that people will take heed of and maybe try implementing with their own kids. So what's one like sustainability tip you got that you'd like to share with people who might not be, so inclined to protect the environment, if you will?
One of the things that I really like to do is I like to drink out of a cup, just the old fashioned way, tipping it. And I think that what people have to try is try going to a restaurant and picking up the cup. It's actually a good workout as well. So you can, with the health and wellness being so important, I would say pick up the cup, tilt it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, I promise you can go back to a plastic straw.
Right.
But if it works, if you have the ability to do that, and I'm partially joking, but I'm also partially not, because there are disabilities that make it so that you have to use a straw. But
that's totally understandable.
And that's totally understandable. But give it a shot. That's a good sustainability trick that I think a lot of people are starting to learn. It's been encouraging to see, but it's something that we still have to work on.
I heard a lot of local care centers have been getting issues because people now, they're not used to the ice dumping on their face. So they're trying to get that last little bit out, and they don't have their straw, and there's just all these injuries from people getting ice in their face. People have been dumping hot coffee in their eyes. Crazy shit. I mean,
for real? Yeah.
No. But
I was gonna say,
yeah, it's
I don't know. I don't know. I was like, maybe.
Yeah. No, that was one of the things when this whole straw thing started getting attention. I looked at my own life, because I never thought twice about it, to be honest, until somewhat recently. Like, I was like, why do I even use this? It is the most unnecessary thing. My teeth aren't sensitive to the ice or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
So I haven't really hopped on the reusable straw bandwagon yet, because I just don't use one personally. So good tip.
Yeah, generally speaking, me too.
Yeah.
I like eating the ice too. So I like to tip my cup anyway. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, I do like to show that even people that care the most about the environment and are entirely educated about all this stuff have weaknesses in our own lifestyle that we're still working on. So what's a thing that you could own up to about wanting to improve in your own life as far as your impact?
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what we're working on. It's both personal and business, but we are recently. I've been really bothered by the fact that we are United by Blue is definitely a vanguard for businesses focused on ocean and waterway pollution, but we're not perfect. And in many ways, we're just as bad as plenty of other businesses when it comes to the use of plastics within our supply chain. And so we're coming clean in the very near future with our community as a whole about our plastic use and our consumption and all the single-use plastics that we use. And we're going to be publishing that. We're going to be tracking it. We're going to be basically being like which is again not to mince words here, but we are addicted to plastic.
Yeah.
And we believe that it is an addiction that needs to be broken. So I'm addicted to plastics. I mean, I'm not plastic free at home. I have plenty of things that are single-use plastics that are going in the recycling bin. And as we know, recycling is really not the end all be all solution.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be an example. If I'm a leader of an organization that cares this much, and I'm also faced with these issues, that's how prevalent they are, and that's how hard we have to work on this. So coming clean, telling people about that, and making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable as well.
Yeah, I love that awareness side. I think a lot of people just see the product on the shelf, you know what I mean, and don't necessarily see everything behind those closed doors.
Totally.
One thing that really bothered me, we did an episode previously on, I believe it was Nike creating they started their own kind of rating system for their own factories. So they didn't use a third party, and then were reporting on a star basis, right? So they'd tell you, oh, this is a 5-star factory, and this is some good stuff here. But there weren't really public criteria that I could find that was, very clear as to what those ratings were based off of. So it was like, yeah, it drove me crazy, the kind of taking advantage of the same concept of it being important to try to like publicize what's behind those closed doors, but then like perverting it a little bit so that they could, potentially be inaccurate or not necessarily tell the whole picture.
Totally.
So that's pretty awesome that you guys are, investing in doing that. Nobody's making you, I presume, and
no.
It's not something that anybody likely would even fault you for not doing, but you'll definitely get a lot of praise for doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Absolutely. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I really appreciate it, Brian. I think that was a great conversation, and especially the tips on your own lifestyle. I know I definitely have a hard time to fess up about my own thing. I'm really bad with taking showers that are too long, too hot. Or, I play a lot of sports. So if I beat my body up doing something, soaking in a bathtub, it's my guilty pleasure, admittedly. So I'm not going to make you put yourself out there without shitting on myself a little bit here. But anyway, I really appreciate your time. I really love the brand. I don't reach out to companies that I don't entirely believe in and want to see grow and be successful. So I'm excited to see how well you guys seem to be doing and the new products and innovations that you're putting out there.
I appreciate that, Colin. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And with that, everybody, you can find them at unitedbyblue.com or, on their Instagram at unitedbyblue as well. And remember, protect your wild. Hell yeah, Brian, and hell yeah, United by Blue. Man, I was so stoked to get that opportunity to interview him. They really are one of my favorite brands. They offer so much good shit on their website. Be sure to check it out. And thank you guys again so much for listening. We got a great episode coming at you next week. Every Tuesday they're coming out. And please, please, please leave us a review and subscribe to the podcast. It's the most important thing for us to be able to grow and bring on more awesome guests like Brian. And seeing as that the music is over now, I should probably shut up. So see you guys next week.